What's going on, family? What's going on? What's happening? This is Jonathan Soul speaking with you now. And I got my brother, the famous, I would say, usurper of the classical superhero writer. I'm talking about Jay Kelley, the man who's not
What's
only
up,
given
fam?
us a time-traveling healer, but he's given us a saga in the form of Blackout with his other brothers, Roosevelt Pitt and Vince White. What's going on, Jay?
Hey, what's going on, Jonathan, man? Happy, ecstatic, jubilant to be here, man. Always a pleasure to be on your show, man. I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, man, yeah. And if y'all don't know it, y'all should follow Jay on Twitter. It's Dr._Hugh. Is that correct?
That is correct, my friend.
Yeah. He's always dropping jokes. I think my kids would call it dad jokes at this point. You know what I mean? But and then some and then some insightful kinds of comments. But both of us saw Black Panther at least twice, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, saw at least twice.
Loved
So
it.
I thought it was dope. And so I figured, well, everybody's talking about how wonderful it is, but I figured maybe I could go on that kind of conspiracy brother vibration with Jay and maybe talk about the subtext, because with Get Out, Jordan Peele, there were definitely some messages that were there and stuff. And I figured, Ron Coogler is a smart director, writer. I figured maybe there might be some parallels from history that he's drawn on. So Jay, just overall, was there any kind of a subtext, any kind of theme that you thought, hit you after watching Black Panther?
Well, I tell you something that I thought was interesting. First of all, I thought it was a very phenomenal tour de force by Ryan Coogler.
Mm-hmm.
Guy should be commended tremendously. I also think Kevin Feige should be commended too,
Yeah.
because he was smart enough to know that he could not, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but no white person could have made that movie.
Right.
Could have, so he got the right people. I think initially he wanted Ava DuVernay, and I think she was committed to the Wrinkle in Time thing, and she suggested Ryan Coogler, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And that proved to be a very good thing. Here's something, initially when I was watching the movie, I was struck by the visuals and everything. The architecture was reminiscent of Timbuktu, and obviously, you got that DuBois, Booker T. Washington, and Malcolm X, Martin Luther King vibe. But it was something I heard earlier today that you noticed that in the movie. I don't want to get too conspiratorial. This in the movie. Only about what's his name? T'Challa didn't kill any white people. So the only person who killed somebody white was Killmonger, right? And Killmonger was
okay.
If you think about the movie, yeah, Killmonger was the only one who killed anybody white. Mm-hmm. Now T'Challa and his dad T'Chaka killed, they killed their own, but they didn't kill anyone else. They had problems with Europeans or whatever, but they didn't kill anyone. And obviously Killmonger was the villain of the piece, and
was he?
He was. Yeah, I was gonna say, here's the thing about that, is that Killmonger wasn't really the villain.
Right.
Maybe you can call him an anti-hero or something.
Mm-hmm.
This dude was not the. I'm sorry, man. I'll start off by saying this. Part of me feels like Marvel owes me some money. This is why I say, hold on. Let me tell you why I think they owe me some money. Okay, now because you and I have had this conversation. You know that I created the brother. The brother was specifically created not to be what I call the magical Negro. That is a black person, a character in fiction, has all these amazing powers. He helps everyone. He facilitates everyone's agenda, usually the white lead's agenda, except for his own, except for other blacks. He's there like in Morpheus and The Matrix and Bagger Vance and John Coffey and the Green Mile. These powerful black characters, all these abilities, and they help the white guy facilitate whatever goal he's after. I'm not knocking that. That's the way the writer wanted to do. But so I created the brother. The brother was a black man, an African, who cared about African people, who wanted to reunite the diaspora and wanted to heal them. That's me, man. I'm just then Marvel makes this movie, and and they deviate from their original source material and made and improved it actually.
Yeah.
And made T'Challa a much better character, where he is more concerned about uniting people and healing and all those things. I feel like they got that from me. Practically, they stole that from me. But
well, it's funny that you mentioned the complicatedness of B. Jordan's character, because to me it's very similar to the Watchmen quote unquote villain. I don't know if you've seen that movie, The Watchmen.
Yeah.
But the guy, the Olympian kind of a guy, his name obviously escapes me, but he basically did the same thing. You know what I mean? He did the same thing. He killed millions, so he could save billions, or kind of a thing. He got away with it. And I kind of feel like that's the only. I mean, Loki is fun, but he's a simple, villain. And what's his name? Claw, mustache twisting, what I mean? Simple. But Jordan, but Killmonger's like, man, they definitely. So I was trying to think, is he like Nat Turner analog? Is he like Malcolm X? I don't think Malcolm X would be sending troops outside the border. Is he like a Fidel Castro? No. I was trying to place, that I know it's, 2D and fictional, but I was trying to place him in history as an analog. You follow me? What do you see?
Yeah, I got you.
What do you see Killmonger? Like, what would be a good
Killmonger?
Analog?
Oh wow, Killmonger. Killmonger. I think he's a combination. He's a composite of probably several different similar historical figures, because the thing that the one thing you mentioned about going beyond your borders, like when you mentioned people like Nat Turner. Nat Turner wasn't really interested in going around the world. He just wanted to be free, and he wanted to free his people right in there. Maybe he would have went further like that. Marcus Garvey wanted pretty much what Wakandans already had, their own country and their own peace within their own. And so that's. But the thing with the Killmonger character, which makes him so interesting, is the fact that wasn't enough for him.
Right.
He wanted to go and save everybody else. He wanted to go, and he was willing to wage war in order to get it done. And he was talking about like a new world order, changing the whole structure of everything. More than a paradigm shift, he wanted to change the balance of power. Yeah. And really, and now here comes where the mustache twirling part comes in. The whole world domination thing. But he had a benevolent reason for it.
Right.
You have people who have no compunctions about persecuting you, have done it historically in the past. And one thing I thought they were going to do, but they did, probably because it's still a movie for the general audience. They didn't get into anything, any of the Leopold II type of stuff. And I was watching too, man, because I'm writing on a Leopold II story with the brother, and I was saying, man, if they go anywhere near Leopold II or Cecil Rhodes or people like that, or Stanley, Dr. Livingston, I presume, all that kind of stuff, and then I was going to get all uptight. But he had plenty. One of the things that I saw a white person said that they didn't really get a whole lot out of the movie, that it wasn't really. They thought it was a good movie, but it wasn't any better than, say, Ant-Man or something. And I said, well, yeah, only a white person can say that, because they don't have our experiences, they don't know our point of references, they haven't had the persecution we've endured, they've been privileged their entire life. So it's just that story to him is just as meaningless as the Justice League or Batman versus Superman to everybody else, because that's just as much gravitas in it. But to us, like when I'm looking at Killmonger, like I see Nat Turner, I see Denmark Vesey, I see Martin Delaney. I see all these guys. I see a little bit of John Brown in there, even though John Brown's a white guy. It's just I see an older DuBois. DuBois was, he was pretty. You
talking about the one that went to Ghana? That old?
Yeah. That one. That because at one time he was like, oh nah, and then after he got older and saw it just wasn't working. Then that was kind of messed up there.
So do you feel like there was any evolution? Like, I think it would be obvious to see that between the T'Chaka, the Black Panther, the original one, and then his son T'Challa, there was evolution in terms of the isolationism that they felt like Wakanda needed. But Njombo, which was Eric Killmonger's father, do you feel like there was any kind of evolution? Did Eric keep the same ideas as his father? Or?
Yeah, he pretty much had the same ideas as his father. Same. In fact, he's a little bit more, obviously, more. I won't say fanatical, but more passionate about going after it. And then when you say some evolution, I look at T'Chaka's primary problem that he left the boy. He should have brought Killmonger with him. Because there's a side. I'm just gonna be honest with you, man. There's a side of me that is kind of like, hey, man, that there's a side of me that wants to be a little bit of an isolationist. Say, hey, we got our own thing, forget them. But you got your people,
right?
Over, you got your people spread out, and that's the thing. Toward the end where T'Challa was talking about, basically doing his Obama routine where he's, trying to help everybody, and so we're gonna pretty much bring in this new age of Aquarius and all that kind of stuff, And I'm like, man, I'm with you, brother. I really am, but in reality, we know it's not going to go down like that. It's not going to go down like that. Right. And
it's funny that you mentioned Obama, because with Obama, as with this movie, we're projecting a lot of stuff on him. You know what I mean? That probably wasn't there with this movie. So I'm with you on that one. Now, I feel like an overarching theme with this film, and I want to talk about the women too, but an overarching theme, I think, is a conversation between African Americans and Africans. Do you feel like that's there, or am I tripping?
No, that's definitely there. You kidding? Look, not only is that there, I was watching, I saw like a couple of reviews on, it wasn't really a review, it was like a video on YouTube of the premieres in Africa, in South Africa and Kenya, of the Black Panther. And they did like these little impromptu interviews with people after they came out of African people after they came out of the movie, and one of them even said that, even mentioned that specifically about the differences between African Americans and just African Americans, the diaspora, and blacks, Africans that are still there, and said that it was like some kind of attempt to arrive at some sort of resolution between the conflict between the two of them, trying to bring us together, and I got that too. I saw that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some cognitive dissonance when it comes to this whole pro-Africanness on our part, because I'm over 40, and so I remember going to lectures with Dr. Asante, who I think he coined the phrase Afrocentricity. I remember seeing exactly. I remember seeing different folks from the 60s and stuff in person, and I remember seeing scholars, the brother who wrote that came before Columbus, taught at Rutgers. What's the brother's name? Ivan Van Sertima. I seen him in person. The brother who invented Kwanzaa. I don't know if he was an asset or whatever, but anyway, I've seen the people in person, real scholars, right? Not this YouTube bullshit that the kids listen to now. The point is that as pro-African as we say we are, when I went to those groups, I didn't see African people there. You know what I mean? Right. I didn't mingle socially with African people because there was always this kind of disconnect. you know.
True.
And I think it was engineered. I had a roommate from Nigeria. I got out of school, came down, you know, and everything, trying to establish myself. And the Nigerian guy said, you know, when we came to America, the white people told us to stay away from you African Americans. I was like, what? You know what I mean? They told us at the airport. I was like, damn. You know what I mean? But yeah, so there always a disconnect. So people talk about Africa, but they're socially, you know what I mean? But I think this, you know, is an opportunity, you know, if people take it, you know what I mean, and say, yo, you know what I mean, maybe this disconnect is not a thing that's connected. The other thing is, I thought it was conversations about class.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Wakanda, you know, basically had the resources, and then the African Americans didn't. And so toward the end of the movie, set up an outreach center, you know, in order to share, kind of thing. So I'm guessing they're trying to say, well, the wealthier African American people should go back to the hood, you know what I mean, and bring people up. You know, I think that was a thought. Did you have any thoughts on the way the women were portrayed?
Here's the thing, like one of the first things that hit me about the women, you know, they're very assertive, and I know about the homie Amazons, and I loved it, obviously. And it kind of reminded, you know, I used to date this Ethiopian girl, and she had told me that, you know, everyone talks about Selassie, obviously, and Menelik the First, you know, being the first male monarch of Ethiopia. But she said that there used to be female. It was a matriarchal society. It was supposedly a matriarchal society before the Queen of Sheba and Solomon got together. And Solomon's son by Sheba, and, you know, this is all like lore, or, you know, so I don't know how. I haven't really done enough research. I probably shouldn't be saying it, but Solomon and Saba's son, Menelik the First, was like supposedly the first male monarch. But prior to that, Ethiopia was presumably a matriarchal society, and women were just as, you know, just as assertive, just as strong and leaders of society as that. And at some point, and I don't know what happened, but it flipped. And I was looking at that, and I bring that up because Okoye was probably the strongest person. That's the one played by Michonne Bernard Gorora. Probably the strongest individual in there. And I said, wow, she's powerful, and she is absolutely, unequivocally, categorically committed to protecting T'Challa, the throne, and the kingdom of Wakanda. Well, here's the thing. No, I'm rambling, but here's the thing. Every society, women are the foundation of every society. You got to have it. Women are the center. Without women, I heard someone say, in my family, without a woman, you're just a group of people. So you got to have a woman in there.
Okay.
You say, to become a family, to become a society, to become an organization. There's something about the female that all of us revolve around here. And so it makes sense that women, you know, when you have a society like be it Wakanda, whatever, or community, neighborhood, that women would be the ones who would be the most adamant about protecting it. You know, because in some ways they are the matriarchs. They are the ones who create it. You know, because women give, you even know this, I mean, you know, that women, whether we like it or not, they give validity to us. That's why do you think we advertisers use women to sell everything?
Right.
Because women, something in us psychologically tells us that, hey, look, if you don't have a woman, you even got gay guys on the down low got a wife. You know, and they're not even romantically attracted to them. It's something about women that maintains us, that sustains us, that legitimizes us, that validates us. And so I was kind of really, I like seeing the women in strong, but here's the flip side of that. It seemed like some of the men were, you know, I don't know, but I liked it. I liked it.
See, man, you was going there, but you stopped. All right, so tell me if this is where you was going.
This is what I don't like. Go ahead.
This is what remember that this is podcast. We don't censor. You know me. No euphemisms. That's my thing. This is Jonathan. No euphemisms. This is like old school AM radio after midnight type conversations. So I like the idea of, okay. Let me put it like this: the idea of a woman who is free to express herself and be all she can be. I'm down with that. The idea of putting women in war and having them on the front lines, I don't like.
There you go.
Least bit.
Okay. This is what I was, and I'm gonna let you talk in a second. But this is why I gave it that big long diatribe, because I was trying to lay the foundation where I wouldn't be perceived as being sexist, and some might even say misogynistic for saying this. But I'm like, the subtext of me saying that women validate society, women are the center of every organization, be it family, what have you, women legitimize us, is to say, well, I don't really think they should be on the front line. I'm just saying they're valuable. It's like Malcolm X said. He said that the most persecuted, the most disrespected, the most attacked person in our society is the black woman. Malcolm X said that. I'm paraphrasing, but he said that. And that's true. And, coincidentally enough, our society, black people, seem to be having the worst time, the hardest time surviving and making it, probably as a result of that. I don't think you should put women on the front line. I don't think you should, Now look.
No. I think that was a feminist, liberal,
obviously, man.
White liberal play,
Because here's the thing. Look, I read Black Panther comics, and they're in there, and I think that's good because it's like a throwback to history. But they're not. I mean, they're not. It's like the men don't do anything. It's not like they don't take the place of the men.
I gotta be honest with you, man. If I was going to war in this fictional universe, I would be more concerned about the ape people. You know what I mean? And the rhino people than the Wakandan people. The only thing Wakanda got, as far as, strength is the technology. Yeah. If I see a country where your fighting force is women, I'm assuming you weak.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not to disrespect, women, but, nobody's really believing the argument that, you take 100 men in a room, you take 100 women in the room, and, the nature designed us certain ways. One is a protector, one, opens the door, where you can come into this planet and all that kind of stuff. So, but I get it, the climate that we're in, that's a small thing. The other thing is I was looking really hard the second time, and there were Wakandan men in arms in the welcoming ceremony and in the throne room, but you barely saw them. They were in almost like silver gold armor, but they were standing there real quiet, kind of a thing.
Well, see, I didn't catch it. That's how subtle it was.
Yeah, it was very subtle. Now, what did you think about the relationship or the interaction between T'Challa and Nakia? Lupita's character.
Kind of his.
Because he said this one line. He said, "You would make a great queen if you wasn't so stubborn," and she said, "I would make a great queen because I'm stubborn."
I'm stubborn, right?
And I was like, "Damn, that's like a classical."
Yeah, I know. Really, I thought it too.
Sometimes what women think makes a good partner is exactly the opposite of what men think is a good partner. Is my point.
Oh, absolutely. And that's like an American line there. Yeah. Because I am stubborn. That came straight from, and I'm not knocking people, but I'm just saying, if you're gonna be a couple, get something done, some sort of consensus is the ideal. If you're just contrarian all the time, that you forget it. You're just wasting your time. But I don't. Maybe it's just me. But here's the thing. Okay, I'm torn while we're discussing this, because here's the deal. On the one hand, I loved and adored the movie. I think it's phenomenal. I don't think anybody else could have done it. I consider it to be a gift from Ryan Coogler. But on the other hand, it's not perfect. And there are flaws in the movie. The flaws are minuscule. I mean, the flaws are not worth throwing the whole movie away.
No, not at all.
But
I want to buy everything,
flaws.
the poster, the T-shirt, everything.
Oh yeah, I love it. But but there are some little mixed messages they send in there sometimes. Like I say, the whole thing about, I get it. Feminists want to be represented, and they want to be seen as being strong, and you want your daughters to have role models to look up to. But
to me, the best role model was really the queen and the little nerdy little sister. Those was the best.
Sister, yeah, Shuri.
Shuri. To me, she was the cutest. I mean, the way it was just like, okay, this is a well-adjusted, well-cared for, protected woman who can thrive because she's, like I said, well-cared for. She's protected. She has resources. Her family loves her. So, when people think of nerds, they think of socially awkward and insecure and all that kind of stuff. And so they, offset that by doing something. She was like a perfect balance. To me, she was like an archetypical, that's the way we want our little girls.
I said that too. I said that would be the perfect little sister.
Yep.
And I said, because, she's smart, she's intelligent, she's, cares about you, that kind of stuff, and respects you to a certain extent, to the point of being defensive, defending you if necessary.
Always had his back. Always looked out for him.
Yeah. And she always was checking him out and worried about him, when he was in jeopardy and stuff like that. I always did. So, and I thought, and the person, I don't know her name, but the person that cast is perfectly cast. Yeah. She's such a likable person. I mean, just from the moment she said something. And I here's a side note. I look at her and she is a beautiful girl. Yep. Gorgeous girl. But I grew up with about 100 girls who look similar to that.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I never remember the idea, the thought that they could be on a movie and be elevated like that is almost.
See, that's what's also beautiful, is that she was normal. We saw black people like portrayed in like a normal kind of a way. They weren't whores. I don't use the whole term. They weren't drug dealers. It's something very powerful about African people being portrayed as like normal, healthy human beings without some gigantic flaw in their character. That was more powerful than vibranium or any of that shit.
Right, and that's the reason why you find me reluctant to say anything critical, even though there's always room for criticism. But because I don't want it to be misinterpreted like I'm bashing the movie, because like I said, I consider the movie to be a gift.
To me, this is black people's version of Star Wars.
Absolutely, man. Man, you're the second person to say that. You're the second person I heard say that.
Because that's the spirit. It's the spirit of the age. When Star Wars, now I'm stealing from an essay by Mumia Abu-Jamal, who wrote something on Star Wars a while back. He's one of my heroes. And Mumia basically said Star Wars came out at a time in America where they were conflicted about their identity. And, the Vietnam War, I think, either had just finished or whatever, or they was getting ready to pull out or whatever. And, America kind of was struggling with its own identity. And so when Star Wars came out, all the, white folks, and us included, whoever saw it, I was a child, child at the time, we identified with the rebellion. We identified with Luke and Leia and Han and all that kind of stuff. But on the real, we was the empire.
Yeah.
America was the one going around the world fucking up the situation and everything. We was the empire, man. You know what I mean? He laid it all out. And so I felt like in this time now with Trump basically telling all the racists it's okay to act out. That's really what it was happening. You know what I mean? I remember when I was in high school or somebody said Ronald Reagan made it cool to be racist again. Well, that's the fuck what Trump is doing. And
Oh,
so
absolutely.
this movie comes out at a time when it says, hey, listen, black people, you really need to circle the wagons because you got more resources than you realized, and you can solve your own problems. You know, activists are saying that, and writers are saying and everything, but it's something to kind of get like a griot, like Ryan Coogler, to kind of pull us around the campfire and tell us the story. And the moral of the story is lock arms.
Right.
You know what I mean? Lock arms. And that's something, and if you guys follow me on Twitter at Jonathan Soul, what I keep saying over and over for the last week is, after we finish visiting Wakanda, because this is going to go away and, you know, all the kind of stuff, we got science fiction writers, we got independent filmmakers, we got comic book creators that are saying these kinds of ideas, but they're unrestricted. You know, I mean, they're not part of the Hollywood machine. You can read The Brother, you know, by Jay Kelley. You can go to indieplanet.us and you can pick up issue 1 and 2. You know, you can get the Purge comic on Kid Comics. It's all kinds of places where you can get black comics that don't edit themselves and say it how it really is. We have to circle the wagons. You know, I remember John Henry Clark said something to the effect that we don't have any friends. Well,
yeah, you sure did.
Nobody wants to be friends with people who perceive themselves as powerless. But that's not the case with us. You know, the problem, to me, the problem with Eric Killmonger was he was focused on the wrong weapons. It wasn't guns and bullets that made Black Panther the #1 movie on the planet. Black people got another weapon that we don't really utilize in a proper way. And that's bread. People forget that usually financial wars hit first before the kinetic wars. One country, you know, devalues their currency so they can get ahead.
Why do you
Go
think
ahead,
the only reason why the Montgomery bus boycott worked, the only reason, it wasn't some moral change of heart. It's because you were hitting those folks in their pocketbook, in their wallet. They needed that money, and that's why they did it. You know, they hated you just as much afterward as they did before. They didn't love you. You know, because of that. They did it because they had to. You know, they were dependent upon those dollars. And when we stopped doing that, then they said, we got to do something. We got to do something.
You know, in our state, I'll say this real quick just to cap off the financial part. In our state, I think it was the governor, I could be wrong, basically signed legislation that said that it's illegal to boycott Israel. There's this international movement to boycott, divest, and sanction, and he basically making it illegal. So that's a financial tactic that they're trying to protect themselves from. So we, you know, Killmonger maybe have focused on the wrong weapon, so to speak. Historically, you're right. To go back to that Bush boycott, I think it was after about a year, they offered to sell the bus line to the movement.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. I was like, they missed the ownership piece. They missed it. But anyway, go ahead, Jay, man. I could
well, one more thing about the bus boycott. Okay, in the town where I live at now, in Houston, Texas, there's a community, a black community called Acres Home. They had their own bus service that came out of that boycott and was doing well. And then when the boycott was you know, then they just threw it all away. And I'm like, why did you do that? Why? You know, we want to be accepted so bad. We want people to hug us so bad, man. And I don't get it. Here's another trick we get too, is that we don't. I get it. We want things to be easier. We want them to be simple. We don't like to fight all the time. We don't like having to always be on guard. But you gotta be. Like I give you an example. Now we talk about science fiction and fantasy and stuff all the time. And you wonder, man, you know, golly, you got these shows like Star Trek and you know, and all these, you know, Flash Gordon or whatever that they're looking to, and these characters are social justice warriors in these comic books and these cartoons, and they really are. They're fighting for righteousness, but yet the fans, predominantly white fans, I'm talking about, don't follow suit. They don't follow through in the real world. You're like, golly, man, if you're a big fan of Doctor Who or whatever, who goes from different time zones and different planets helping the oppressed people, how come you're against Black Lives Matter? How come you're against helping women who are oppressed and stuff? How, what's the deal on that? And here's the answer. When racists look at fantasy or entertainment or fiction like that, they don't like let's say a racist looks at Star Trek. He doesn't like Star Trek because of the social justice part. The social justice part is just a MacGuffin. He likes Star Trek because Captain Kirk is ordering around a bunch of minorities and got them all in line, and they do whatever he say. He gets to screw every woman he wants to screw, and he's the HNIC on the Enterprise. That's what they like. They like their control, and the social justice part, is just the MacGuffin. It's just an excuse. It's just a diversion. It's just what they tell you, the lie they tell you to get you to capitulate, to acquiesce to what they do. I mean, meanwhile, black fans and stuff like that, black fans are digging the social justice. Oh man, Captain Kirk, such a righteous dude, man, trying to do the right thing, giving a speech, and we're missing it. When you think about it, and you alluded to this earlier, like let's say Star Trek, and I like Star Trek, I'm not knocking it, but Star Trek was really based on colonialism or imperialism. The Federation going to these different planets, colonizing these planets, supposedly in the name of peace, justice, and all that kind of stuff. But they were still controlling these planets. They were basically telling these people what to do. They just put Gene Roddenberry just put a positive spin on it.
Right.
And the same thing is going on now. Even in today, you see these supposed geeks don't want to see black heroes. They were trying to undermine the Black Panther by saying people was beating up white viewers. That's not true, obviously.
Right.
And why would you do that if you're a fan of the genre? If you're a fan of morality, when you got a character that's trying to promote morality? Well, because they're not really fans. They're not really fans.
Well, I think they're fans, but I think they're white first. You know what I'm saying? It's like, they're white before everything. You follow me?
Right. Yeah. But you see
whiteness inherently has a very fragile ego. The whiteness that they've built in America anyway. I can't speak to Europe or anything. But so anytime it looks like you're not dominating, you take that as an attack. You know what I mean? Look at the way they had Ross, the brother from Doctor Who and Hitchhiker's Guide or whatever. I mean, he just walked around, little guy. He just walked around like he owned the place, right? And they had to shut him down, especially the big ape fella. Which I thought was hilarious. Like, what? What the hell? You know what I mean? And did you notice when Nakia bowed down to kind of try to bargain and get the dudes alliance, and then what's the name bowed down? Then they had the white dude bow down too, but he was you kind of couldn't see it almost.
Yeah, right.
I've never seen anything like that in film. I rarely ever see a black guy kill a white guy in film. The way he killed Claus. So I feel like Ron Coogler really pushed the envelope with this film and everything. You know what I mean? And people not understanding it. Man, if you look on the interwebs, those people are such a minority. The planet is celebrating this film. Fuck them racists. That's the way I feel. Miserable people are gonna be miserable.
They're gonna be miserable. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're
gonna be miserable, with or without you.
Exactly. If it wasn't us, it'd be the Jews, or it'd be Spanish people, or it'd be somebody else.
Yeah, right. I mean, and to be honest with you, other groups should be happy to see us walk in the room, because as long as we're there, we're gonna be persona non grata, not them.
Exactly.
And then once we go, then they get demoted. That's the thing, because that's essentially what happened in 1691. You know, our poor people were pretty much on the same level, right, in the colony of Virginia. And then they said, oh, well, you know what? We're going to outlaw miscegenation, and we're going to take away all black people's rights and give you white people's, poor whites, rights that you previously didn't have. And then there you go. You know, they've been protecting the power elite ever since, those poor whites.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. I guess they figure if they're the last ones to go into the camp, that's progress, I suppose. That's status. So, man, we're gonna wrap it up. Man. I didn't want to have this to be a long conversation. You know, just so people don't get the wrong idea, we absolutely love the film. We're gonna rattle off a few of our favorite pieces just to wrap it up. So, go ahead, Jay. What are some of your favorite moments or pieces of the film before we wrap up?
The first, when they first made it to Wakanda, and you can totally see the influences, like I mentioned this earlier, about the architecture from Timbuktu, and even the color of the film. And what I mean by that is, it wasn't like it was in Europe. You knew you were in Africa by the tone, by the color palette, but at the same time, it was just so well preserved. I also liked how they treated the Black Panthers' religion. I've often wondered how the Yoruba religion, or Ifa, would have evolved if it hadn't been interrupted by imperialism, colonialism. How would look? Here's the thing. One thing about religion, a lot of people don't know about the three major religions, or at least about Judaism and Christianity. They both practiced animal sacrifice at one time, and then they evolved beyond it, right, over time. Well, you know, like Ifa had to go on the ground. The Yoruba religion had to go. You know, you get punished for it, and who knows how it would have developed, or evolved, or progressed, or advanced if it hadn't been for that imposition. But anyway, that's just two. I know you're getting ready to go. Well, what were some of your favorites?
A couple of my favorites was from a graphic designer, because that's like my training. This is one of the first black movies, or the first black movie that had beautiful typography. Like when a movie first comes on and you see the title, you know, usually with black films, it's just plain, you know what I mean? But they did something beautiful. And then I found out from a reviewer that the type that they use is like some proto, like Nigerian script or something. It's like really from like Nigeria or something like that. I love the, like you said, the architecture. The second time I saw like thatched roofs on some of the skyscrapers, and you know, like the sticks coming out, like the mud, you know, and everything, and then it was glass and all that kind of stuff. I saw, you know, when they was walking through they use the same little street, you know, which is fine, but there was no poverty, even though I saw graffiti right in there and everything, you know what I mean? And so they keep emphasizing this is what, and I don't know how Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, I don't know what was in their brain, because the interviews is like, oh, they just did it real quick. You know what I mean? But it's like, this is what it could be like without colonialism.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And because, you know, and I'm thinking the whole world, you know, because capitalism, you know, and all these other isms stunt human growth and progress. And so it seems like Wakanda was working without the isms, and it allowed them to like catapult forward. And so Wakanda could be like Earth if we didn't have all these isms dragging us down. So that's, you know, other than the beautiful close-ups of the Chocolate Sisters and everything and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I just thought the film was awesome. I'm going to buy a DVD, even though they don't make DVD players no more. You know, all this other kind of stuff. For my mom's in them and everything. So I love the film, man. I saw it twice. I don't know. I might even see it again. Who knows?
I love the film, man. I mean, the thing is, I thought the exact same thing. And if it wasn't for colonialism, imperialism, and all, like I said, all these other isms we can get. I'm looking at the thing and I'm thinking, how can we bring that about now?
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the thing. And I'm gonna just step on my soapbox for just a half a second. I feel like, you know how in America, like early in the game, they didn't allow black people in a lot of businesses, and so we did like entertainment and labor, right? You know what I mean? And so, just like the Asian people, they didn't allow them to do a lot of stuff. They did restaurants and dry cleaning, and then they kept working that shit, and then they owned it. I mean, I feel like maybe this, us owning like what you're doing, your writing and the comics and the sci-fi and folks. I'm talking to these guys who are working on. I talked to the brother in Trinidad and Tobago, Self-Flux. He's working on animation, for example. Half of the creators I'm talking to, they're working on animation, and then that's a stepping stone to a movie. The other half want to do it, kind of a thing. So I feel like us recapturing our images is a way for us to kind of reprogram. We all got PTSD living in this society, and it gets reinforced every time we see somebody get shot, on the interwebs, and every time there's a hashtag, and it gets reinforced. I think our healing can come from, it sounds strange, but I feel like maybe some of this imagery. Because let's be honest, man, I'm not saying you did it, but it was brothers crying in the theater, man, off of some of those images. They were so powerful.
I know, and
that's healing right there.
Not only did we cry, I mean, there are certain places you cry, you're expected to cry.
Right.
But what got me was when you're crying, you're tearing up in places that you said where it wasn't even called for.
Exactly.
Okay, I've seen a movie twice. When a movie first came on, when they first, and she said, "We are home."
That's
right?
it. That's the part. That's it.
I've seen her say that a million times on the trailers.
Right.
Nothing. I'm just looking at it. Yeah, okay. When I'm in the movie theater and I heard her say that, man, I start crying like a mug. I said, God, what the hell is? I'm looking around, making sure nobody's paying attention.
I know.
This isn't even a plot point.
Right. Nobody died. Nothing. It's like, what?
Yeah, really.
Stop it, Felix. Stop.
I know, really, man. And I had told you this yesterday. When I had saw the Tempo 2 thing on it, the Tempo 2 architecture, I was like, oh my God, because I was saying, man, for some reason it just triggered something to me. And look, I have a sister, I won't mention which one. I got several sisters, but I won't mention this one by name, who is not into the Africa thing at all. She's just, she's about as worldly as you can get. Okay, this chick went to go see the movie reluctantly. Then ended up going again. But the second time she went, she had all her African garb on.
Wow.
All her African regalia. Wow. And I wanted to say something so bad, but I said, if I say something, I'm going to interrupt it. I'm going to ruin it. So I didn't want to say anything. But I said, if that movie can bring out that type of pride out of someone, then man, how can I do anything but support it?
Yep.
And I think you're right. I think Coogler is trying to not just make a buck, but he's trying to heal us to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I feel all of us really, believe it or not, Jonathan, you, myself, other folks, particularly those of us who are in any type of entertainment industry or writing or something like that, I think we all have a moral responsibility to contribute to that end, to our own healing.
Contribute to the healing, not contribute to the trauma. Not keep showing us in these, positions underfoot and all that kind of stuff. But, and I keep trying to say I'll end it. This is why I say funkadelic instead of futurism, because the idea that I have, I like that the idea that one, it kind of explains itself too. I kind of got this idea from, some conversations I had with you, some conversations I had with Mashindo Kumba, other people. The whole idea of a future worth protecting, to me, is very healing. You know what I mean? White people, when they write, generally speaking, they project a sporadic, a future that's bleak, you know what I mean? A dystopic future. But for African American people, our dystopia is in the past. You can't get worse than slavery. You feel me? So to me, we should be writing in a sense of this utopian, this perfect future that we're either defending or we're fighting for. We're fighting to build. To me, that's healing. You know what I mean? So that's why I say funkadelic, not Afro. Just because a black person got a laser, I don't. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But that's another conversation. Brother Jay, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on the program, man. You're an intellectual. I wanted to talk with you. I wanted the people to kind of, just think about it. It's entertaining, it's fun, and it's the whole thing. I got my Black Panther and Storm comic right here, or whatever. Reginald Hudlin. I got my book. I understand, but hey, I wanted to kind of explore some of these other themes. So, brother, can you tell people where to follow you on social media and how can they support your work?
You can support my work by going to indieplanet.com/US and just type in the brother. You'll find copies of the brother comic book there. I'm also on Facebook, Jay Kelley, Facebook, or Jason Kelley, either one, both of them, me. And there's the Brother fan page, which is also on Facebook. Be more than happy to have any of you come there and check us out. We appreciate it.